Why do you think that you are not worthy? It's as if you see the whole world as amazing and beautiful, but then somehow you're not a part of it. No, you are a part of it. Okay, hello. This is episode 2 of the self-empowerment series, and basically, I don't think I mentioned this in the first episode, but this series is all about taking your power back and your control over your own reality and over your own life back to yourself. So taking responsibility for what it is that you're creating so that you can actually create something different. Realizing that I am the creator of my reality and truly feeling that from within through all these things that I'm teaching in this series, I was able to choose other things and create a reality that I wanted that was different from what I was living before. So this is episode 2, and in this episode, I want to talk about how self-worth is the new self-love. Or in other words, how self-worth was really the thing that helped me realize that I am actually valuable, I'm a worthy human being, and that I'm enough, and that I am lovable. And I think with self-love, the issue for me was that it was very abstract. Like, in a way, it's kind of black and white, where if you either love yourself or you don't. Like, there isn't, to me, it feels like there is no in between, and it felt very difficult to actually get to the place where I really found self-love. And it wasn't like a fake kind of self-love. It was like a genuine self-love. I realized the way I got there was actually working on my self-worth. And like as a byproduct of working on my self-worth, I was able to find self-love, and self-love became so much easier to embody for me after I actually worked on self-worth. And I think that's the benefit of understanding self-worth, is it's easier to understand and it's more teachable. So it's not to say that I think that self-love is not important. It is. I think self-love is like the ultimate goal. Super important. It is really a key to unlocking joy in life, right? Like, you can't love life if you can't even love your own self. But the issue is, to me, it always felt very abstract. It felt difficult to reach. Instead of focusing on self-love, I want to break it down, make it a bit easier, and talk about self-worth for you. Welcome to my channel. It's To My Younger Self, and my name is Yana, and I'm here to, again, like with this self-empowerment series, teach you everything about self-love and self-empowerment and self-care, and teach it in a practical way that I found actually was achievable for me. And ultimately, the goal is to create a life that you love to wake up to, which is what I feel I finally reached now after 5 years of, diving into spirituality, and then even 5 years before that, learning about law of attraction. I feel like now I really figured it out, and I'm here to share. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you like this kind of content and if you like my vibe. So let's get straight into it. Let's talk about self-worth. When I Googled the definition of self-worth, I found that the definition was actually a very clear and good way to describe it, and I'm just going to read it out for you because I think I wouldn't be able to sum it up better than this. But self-worth is the internal state of being good enough and worthy of love and belonging from others. It's about ourselves and how we interact with other people around us. To live a good life, we need to be socially accepted, right? Like, it's difficult to really live a full life if we also don't have fulfilling relationships. That's just us human beings as social creatures. But the ability to feel fulfillment in our relationships comes from us. It has to come from the internal state, which is why I like that this definition talks about the internal sense of being good enough. Because if we feel good enough from the inside, which is what self-worth is, we're able to project that onto others on the outside. And in turn, our internal good enoughness will reflect back to us through other people that they also think that we're good enough. So we'll attract more positive relationships, we'll attract better people, we'll attract people who can treat us well the way we deserve to be treated. This is also why I like to talk about self-worth before self-love, and it's that feeling of being good enough. Like, to me, attempting to reach the place where you feel good enough, right, is quite basic. It's quite base level, which is also like difficult for people to achieve, for sure. I'm not saying that it's easy, but it's easier than being loving to yourself, right? Like, good enough is like a baseline, and then loving yourself is already like a big step above that. And that's why I like the idea of self-worth, like first embarking on a journey of self-worth and then self-love coming sort of as a byproduct. It's not even that you have to work on self-love anymore. It's more that it will come as a result of working on your self-worth. Another part of the definition that I found on Google, which I'll read out now, is one that I will touch upon later in the video, and it's about external achievements. So in Google, it says self-worth is often confused with self-esteem, which relies on external factors such as successes and achievements to define worth, and can often be inconsistent, leading to someone struggling with feeling worthy. And This is the issue, I think, when it comes to self-worth in our society, is that we really focus on our achievements, our external achievements, how well we do in school, how well we do in work, who we hang out with, what kind of relationships we have, like what we look like on the outside, our physical appearance, our body, things like that. That is what we put our self-worth into. And what I want to talk about today is that the external can help. I'm not saying that it's completely irrelevant, but we need to focus so much more on the internal in order to actually achieve a level that is sustainable for us, because it's all about sustaining that self-worth, right? Like if we have a huge success one day at work or at school and we feel amazing and we have that self-worth for a day, that's great, but it's not going to be there for the next year. And we need it to be there for the rest of our lives so then we can actually live a fulfilling life. This is why this video is broken down into 3 parts. The first one is the internal. So I'm going to talk about internal self-worth. The second is the external, because that's also important. So external self-worth. And the third is going to be about taking action. So actually moving forward with practical tips and how to actually build self-worth. Okay, let's talk about internal self-worth. Realize that whether you believe it or not, you are worthy right now. You are inherently worthy by being born onto this planet, by being a part of life, of whatever you consider life to be. We are born onto this planet, and whether you believe that we are greater than this human form or not, being born is still a miracle. Like scientifically, being born is still a huge, huge miracle. And being born as you specifically, your unique personality and your unique appearance and your unique combination of genetics is super, super special. And if you believe like me that we're souls and we come from this one big source of energy or whatever it is, then you can kind of already agree that you are worthy because you're part of that one big, beautiful source of life, right? Like you are a part of that. And if you think that that is beautiful and worthy and like something you look up to, then you're a part of that. Like you have that source of life within you, and you are also within that source of life. Yeah, again, realizing that whether you believe it or not, you are worthy. And it's only a story that you were told since you were a kid that external appearance or external things make you worthy and prove that you're worthy. And that's all not true. That's all a story. We are taught as a society from the moment we are born to the moment that we die that we are worthy based on what we achieve and how we look like and what is on our external. So what we can actually present to other people to prove that we are worthy. That's everything that you've been taught. And I want to teach you now the truth, which is that you are worthy inherently. All right, so for part 2, I want to talk about the external self-worth. The important thing here is to not get caught up in how you appear to other people and maintain the focus on yourself. So doing those things, so it's okay and it's great to do things on the outside in order to improve your self-worth, right? Because you're focusing on yourself, you're focusing on self-improvement. But if we're doing things on the external, such as seeking achievements to please others or make others proud of us, that's where we're kind of going wrong and might end up lowering our self-worth because we're chasing something that will never be attained. The key is to shift the perspective from other people back onto yourself, and with whatever you're doing or whatever you're striving for, to ask, why am I doing this? Am I doing this to look good in a certain way for other people or put it on my CV or so that he thinks or she thinks that I'm beautiful? Or are you doing it to work on yourself? Are you doing it to improve your self-worth? Are you doing it to make yourself more lovable to you? And at first it'll be kind of tricky to, I think, pull apart where you're doing things for other people because it's so ingrained in us how we should be living, and society has taught us so deeply on how we should be and how we should not be that it's difficult sometimes to tell apart what's our desires and what's their desires. But starting to ask yourself that question is really going to help you start to, put the puzzle pieces together and realize where you are lacking self-worth and trying to cover it up and put a band-aid over it, and where you're actually striving for things that inspire you and will help you develop your self-worth. So realizing where you are doing things to please others or to not have to say no, or be in that old mentality of I have to do this in order to prove my worth, and let those things go. Let that story of yours go. And before you let go, obviously you have to become aware of it. So start to question and ask yourself where I'm doing things for other people, But as you become aware of it, realize that you don't have to do that. It's just a story you tell yourself, and that is just something that you're used to doing. The more you work on yourself in this way, the greater your self-worth will become, because you'll realize all the ways that you are not in your self-worth. And you'll also realize that you're worthy of doing this internal work. You're worthy of healing. The very act of working on yourself and personal growth shows you and shows your brain and your body that you are worthy of putting time into. You are your own lifelong project that you deserve to work on. And I just want to say that the fact that you're already here is amazing. If you're still watching this video, and if you're watching any other videos like this, that is amazing, because it shows that you're interested enough to be able to heal and move forward. That is already a sign of self-worth. You know, if you didn't feel worthy enough to be able to put the time into learning about all this, about self-development, personal development, and manifestation, you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't do it if you didn't feel worthy enough to be able to live a better life. So there's a part of you that knows it can live a better life, and so it's seeking this information. It's going out and digging deeper, and you allowing yourself to put the time into yourself is showing yourself that you are worthy. Okay, so now we're on to part 3. And part 3 is the most fun part, because this is where you'll see the most results. And that's taking action. There are a couple things that we do on a daily basis throughout our lives that communicate low self-worth to the universe. And we have to stop doing these things and take more action that reflects our inner self-worth to be able to actually, 1, shift our internal state to the better, and 2, actually shift our reality in a way that will reflect back that better state. So, number 1, saying no. Being able to say no, even when it's difficult or even when you feel anxious or scared, is one of the most empowering and self-worthy things that you can possibly do. This starts with simple things like saying no to, let's say, for example, a friend asks you to hang out and you don't want to, and you might say no and be like, oh, I'm busy, but you're not actually busy. That's already a great step. That's step 1, and that's quite easy. Or maybe for some people it's not easy, but let's say compared to something like turning down a work opportunity that's almost perfect, but it doesn't have, let's say you want to work remote and it doesn't have that one aspect, but the salary is great, the position is great. Saying no to that because you know that you deserve better, or you deserve what you actually want, will be very empowering, because it will show the universe that you know your worth, you know what you deserve, and you know that you can have what you deserve. It's going to feel uncomfortable. The more scary and the more uncomfortable it is, the greater the shift is going to be. Because with simple things, then you know that it's not that difficult for you, and that's why it's already a big part of your personality. Like, it's already integrated within you when something is super easy and something is super comfortable. But when you get into the zone that's outside of your comfort zone, so into the discomfort and into the fear, and you actually are able to step through that and say no and calm yourself down in the moment and tell yourself, no, I deserve better, that's when you'll see the greatest leap in your reality. You can say no and be scared and uncomfortable and trust that the universe is going to send you something better. And this is how you actually communicate with the universe. This is how you show the universe that you're worthy of better things, that you deserve what you want, is by saying no. I think it's counterintuitive for a lot of people, because we tend to think if we say no, we might be passing up an opportunity, we might be closed off, etc., etc., etc. But that's why listening to your intuition here is super, super important. Listen to the fear and the discomfort that might be running through your mind, and whether that could be self-sabotaging you to say yes to something that you truly don't want. So you have to sit with the feeling of discomfort and truly unpack and see the ways that this discomfort is probably holding you back and not letting you say no to something that you truly, deeply, intuitively know is not for you. The second type of action that you can take is setting boundaries. And boundaries is normally the topic that we all hate. It's difficult. Like, I have to say, like, this is one of the most difficult things I ever had to start to learn in my life. And boundaries are difficult because we're afraid that other people will not accept us, right? We're afraid that, if we do something wrong, we might not be loved, we might be abandoned, we might lose our friends and family. But you have to realize that the people who really, really love you will be able to respect your boundaries. And yeah, sure, it might take some communication, it might take some explaining and discussion, but at the end of the day, you are living your life for yourself. And if you can make your life and your inner state comfortable for you and full of peace, because boundaries help you do that, then why not do that for yourself? I mean, think about it. If a friend or family member came to you and said, listen, like, I want to set this boundary. I feel that I need more peace in my evenings, and I think it will help me if you don't call me past 9 p.m. unless it's super emergency. You're gonna be understanding, right? You're gonna be like, yeah, of course, like, thank you for communicating that to me. Thank you for telling me. I want to support you. And it's the same in the reverse. Anything that you feel you need to communicate to a friend or family or a stranger or a person at work, whoever, you have to realize that at the end of the day, if they don't want to meet that boundary, it's fine too. You stated it. You stated your needs, which are super important. And you can't control how they're going to react. They might react badly, but you stated your needs. And they reacted the way they did, but at least you did something for yourself. At least you're creating your life for yourself. Of course, here it's very important to say that when you do set a boundary and you're communicating something to someone, you have to make sure that you present it in a way that is understandable and calm, right? Like, you can't shout at someone and be like, you're a horrible person, you do this and this and this wrong. No, like, come at it with love. Come at it in a way that you would want them to come to you. And there's this trick in psychology where you need to use I language. So instead of saying, you did this, you made me feel this way, and that way, you have to say, I felt this way, or I feel like, or I need. So always make it about you, because it is about you, right? A boundary that you set is about you. So make sure to focus on yourself, and you can always start small and practice your way up. But I'm sure you're watching this right now and there's definitely probably a boundary you're thinking of that you need to set. Whether it's someone who you're hanging out with and they're always late and you feel like they are disrespecting your time, or whether you feel like someone's constantly calling you way too late at night, or someone at work is always copying your work or something. Like, it can be anything, but anywhere where you feel disrespected, you have the right to communicate that. And of course, the other person has the right to disagree, but you have the right to communicate it and you have the right to state your needs. The highest version of you that feels the worthiest and feels the most lovable would never, ever, ever let anyone disrespect them in any way, right? Like, if you imagine yourself as the most worthy version of yourself, what are the ways that you're letting people reflect something otherwise? What are the ways that you still let other people treat you in a way that reflects back to you that you aren't worthy? Okay, so action number 3 is along the same lines, and it's about settling. If you're able to say no and not settle for something because you know that there's something else that can be better, you know deep down that that's what you truly want, and you're able to say no and not settle for something that doesn't fully light you up, that is reflecting really high self-worth to the universe and to yourself. We only settle when we don't feel like we deserve something better, right? When we feel that there is no possibility that we can get something better. And I think that happens a lot with relationships. Let's say there's a couple and they're together because it's comfortable, but they're no longer, I don't know, in love, or they're no longer, or they don't see eye to eye in certain ways. Or let's say one person in the couple might want kids down the line, but another one doesn't. But they both settle together because they feel like, what if I don't find anyone better? What if there's no one better than me? Even though I have to give up and compromise on this huge, huge thing that I really want or thing that I don't want. When we are in our highest self-worth, we know that whatever it is that we want is possible. There are infinite possibilities. If we think about reality in the quantum physics way, where there's infinite realities, we know that we can just choose one. And we know that whatever it is that we can imagine in our minds is possible. Because there's no limits to what is possible in the world. And if we know that anything is possible, it all comes down to knowing that it is possible for us. We have to build our self-worth so high that we won't accept anything less than what we can imagine. And yes, there's a level of staying open to the universe, because there's some things that we can receive that are way better than we can imagine. But we can stay open and still not settle, right? We can say no to someone that we're dating because they don't have a certain quality, like let's say they're not as kind as we would like them to be. We can say no to them, we can let them go and realize that we don't have to settle for them just to not feel alone. We can stop settling and expect better things, expect better outcomes, and realize that we deserve better. And again, I do want to say that it is not an easy task. Just like boundaries and saying no, it's easy to settle, especially when we feel unsafe or we feel out of our comfort zone. We want to settle into the comfort because of fear. because we don't know what we can gain, right? We can only see what we can lose. We won't know what we're going to gain in a situation. Let's say, for example, when we're at our loneliest, let's say right after a breakup, when we feel super lonely, we might want to reach out to our ex, or we might want to go for a one-night stand because we need to fill that loneliness and that void within us, because it feels so uncomfortable. It's outside of our comfort zone to feel that lonely, to feel alone. That's the point when we can easily settle. But realize that moving through that discomfort and doing what you're more afraid of, which is, let's say, staying alone, because, you might fear that you'll never find someone, working through that fear and realizing, no, I'm not gonna be with someone unless they're the full package. That is what is gonna make you feel and communicate to the universe that you're super, super high in your self-worth. And the last action that I want to mention is people pleasing. And I think all of these things that I already mentioned, like settling, saying no, and boundaries, is related to people pleasing, because often we do things so that other people can accept us. But I do want to mention it specifically because I don't want any of you guys to watch this and overlook that huge people pleasing aspect you have, because I didn't call it out right. So I want to tell you, stop doing things for other people. Like I said, with external performance and successes, a lot of the time we do things for other people so then they can accept us and they can feel good about themselves, but it might make us feel bad about ourselves. And we have to stop doing things that are making us feel bad, that just so that other people can feel good. It's not fair. If you think about it, it's really unfair to be able to put yourself down or say yes to something that you really don't want to do just because someone else asked you to do something. Would you ask that of someone else, someone that you love? No, you would never. And why are you doing that to yourself? Any pattern where you're doing something in your life in order to get a certain outcome or get the approval of someone else has to go. You have to let that go. And that's the only way that you're going to be able to actually step into your self-worth and honestly just live a fulfilling and free life. So I want to end this video by giving you resources where I actually learned a lot about self-worth, because obviously I'm not the genius that created all of this information. I pulled a lot of stuff that I learned over the years together, and I do want to share and all the things that really helped me. So the first thing is To Be Magnetic. It's like a program that I found online through their podcast, which is the Expanded podcast, that talks a lot about what I just talked about. I think most of the things, or most of the wording that I have to describe self-worth and how to move forward, comes from To Be Magnetic. They give all these like hypnosis meditations that help you sort of reprogram your mind. But basically, I really recommend that. Before To Be Magnetic, I was already aware of the concept of self-worth. There are a couple of books that I read that really helped me do the things that I mentioned today. And the first thing is called Psycho-Cybernetics, and it's by Maxwell Maltz. He's basically a doctor, and he talks about plastic surgery cases and patients who have had a certain mindset before they did a certain plastic surgery procedure, and they thought that that plastic surgery procedure would help them feel better about themselves, right? Let's say, for example, someone fixed their nose because they thought that they would make them more confident. But what he realized was that if they didn't change the way they perceive themselves, their self-image, before they did the surgery, then the surgery would not help them at all. They would still feel the same way as they did before the surgery. And no matter what physical change they made, their emotions or the way they see themselves or their life would not change. So the shift really comes from within. No matter what physical change you have, the self-worth, the self-image, the self-concept comes from within. The second book that I want to suggest is The Gift of Imperfections by Brené Brown. And this one is not really related to self-image or self-worth specifically, but it can definitely help because Brené Brown is a psychologist and she does research on shame. And shame is a very low emotion that really holds us back from really feeling self-worth and self-love. She talks about, in this book, The Gift of Imperfections, she talks about all the ways that our imperfections are actually perfect and all the ways that we can start to feel good enough in our lives. And finally, the third book, again, not super related to self-worth, but can 100% help. And that's You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. That is already implied by the title, just motivational, inspiring, and can show you that you are worthy. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope it made you realize that you are truly, truly worthy from within, and that there are just a few things that you can shift about your life and change the perspective of how you live your life in order to actually embody that self-worth. So make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it or if you found it interesting and valuable, and comment down below if there's anything interesting that you have to add or something that you learned from this video that you haven't heard about in other videos. And of course, make sure to subscribe to my channel if you like my content. See you in the next one. Bye.